Good afternoon. This is Dr. Robinson, Superintendent of Shenandoah Central School District. This afternoon, I have with me Al Karam, who's our Director for Transportation, and Katie Headwell, who's our Director for Food Services. This afternoon, we'll be talking about transportation and food service provisions and the impact on reopening. Just as a point of reference, we want to ensure that people are able to ask their questions. So please type your questions into the chat. We ask that you listen to the presentation that we'll give this afternoon because in many ways the presentation will address a lot of the questions you have. We have been collecting questions via email and otherwise, and our intent is to try to provide as many answers as a part of the presentation as possible. And after the presentation, we'll have a Q&A session to address additional questions. Again, for a point of reference, it's important for people to know that as we plan for reopening, be it in person or in a completely virtual learning environment, both of those things are different than we've ever provided school before. And it's important. It's important because the things that we're going to talk about related to food services and transportation are not the norm. The notion of going back to the norm is a false notion. We are building a future based upon the realities that we're facing, as well as the uncertainties that we can anticipate based upon the facts that we have at this point. So it's an evolving process, and we ask for your continued patience and understanding, knowing that everything that we're doing as a system has the best interests of our students and our school personnel in mind, not only from a safety perspective, but also from the perspective of a quality learning experience for our students and a productive environment for our employees to work in. We have been doing several of these sessions over the last month or so. As you see here on the screen, we had surveys, we have had webpage, and I would point people to please look at the information on the webpage. At the top of the webpage, there's an alert section that you could go to the reopening plan, that goes a section that goes to our frequently asked questions document. Please go to the webpage if you have any additional questions, because we're trying to put as much information as we possibly can in a forward-facing manner so you as parents, as residents, as employees of the school district, we're on the same page as much as we could possibly be on the same page as we're developing various processes and protocols. We've had many, many live stream sessions, as you see here, and tonight is the third of recent sessions that we've had. We had a CVL session, we've had a safety and PPE session, and tonight we talk about operations, and tomorrow night we'll be back again, talk about instructional program provisions. This week, principals and academic administrators and others are meeting with building staff to talk about all these things that we're doing. So there's a lot of conversation, a lot of commitment by a lot of people to put together the most sound reopening plan that we possibly can. So tonight, as I noted, it's going to be transportation. And I'm pleased to have with us Al Karam, who's the Director of Transportation here. And just to put transportation in perspective, I think sometimes people really don't have an appreciation of the magnitude and the scale of our transportation department. We have approximately 206, 208 buses in a typical school year that's out on the road, so to speak, going over 2 million miles a year. So we're talking about a very complex system that now we're trying to figure out how do we manage it in a COVID environment. So it's important I think, for you to understand that we're going from something that was very complex and trying to segment it in a way that we can still be effective, but yet preserving the safety components of it as well. So at this point, I would like to turn it over to Al Karam, Director of Transportation.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. Looking at the first graph, routing contact tracing. So one of the major guidance that we've received is to reduce the number of individuals in any given space. So unlike prior years where a student may have had multiple drivers in the morning and the afternoon, we've redesigned our routing scheme so that as much as possible, our students will have the same driver in the morning and in the afternoon. This effort is to allow us to reduce exposure of students and staff to each other and be more efficient, especially in contact tracing should a COVID case pop up on any given route. The limit drop and pickup of locations and bus passes. So in prior years, our daycare policy allowed for alternating day variant schedule, and sometimes from week to week that schedule changes. Under the COVID environment, we can't have that. We need a set schedule, the same pickup, same drop off, even for daycare, has to be set from week to week. We cannot have it fluctuating all over the place, because we would then have problems, especially with contact tracing. No bus passes. Bus passes, we handle a lot of those pre-COVID, and that's really a free-for-all. Again, that does not lend itself to contact tracing, so we will not be allowing any bus passes at all. And also, late routes for this year, they're not going to be offered. That's the after-school runs. We're not going to be doing that. And there'll be no transportation shuttles between buildings like we've done in the past either. The staggered bus arrival and dismissal, we've built a staggered arrival for our buses. The intent is for as soon as buses arrive at the bus board, they will begin to offload 2, 3, 4 buses at a time. This way we will have less students on the bus board as they transit into their classroom. And our bus drivers are being trained to not allow all the children to get off the bus quickly. We're going to do it by row, one student at a time, with social distancing in between. And in the afternoon, the schools will bring out students, 3, 4 bus loads at a time, again, social distancing, and then those buses will depart and set up instead of waiting for all the students to board, and then buses depart. So parents transporting of their children, we're gonna, give me a second here, take that out. So let's look at the slide. So if your child is has a health issue, underlying health issue, then we would respectfully ask that you transport that child yourself if you're concerned about that. If not, but you still want to bring your child to school, leave them on the leave their name on the bus, but you can certainly transport them back and forth. And when you do need the bus, just give us a call the day ahead of time, and we'll have the student board that bus. So what you're looking at here is the parent pickup and drop off. If you look on the right, you will see the bus arrival departure time. This is on the elementary side. And what we're asking for the parents to do is to come in and drop off before the buses begin to arrive. As you can imagine, we're going to probably have more cars on campus than in prior years. So we need you to come in, drop off, and leave. The middle school and the high school, the reason you don't see that schedule up there yet, that's being worked on, and the school principals will be communicating that with you pretty soon. The schedule you're looking at right now is the bus arrival and dismissal for all 3 levels, elementary, middle, and high school. That's what's been adopted. This is a very shortened day. This schedule is really what's driving a lot of the changes in school transportation. It's a very condensed day. And there's a lot of things that go into transportation in terms of what we have to do in order to meet the various guidelines. Bus capacity and seating. Our goal, again, is to limit to the extent possible riders on the buses. We want to establish social distancing. Every student, regardless of grade, will be assigned a seat, and we need your help to make sure your children, again, at all grade levels, understand that this year they will have to be in a seat assigned to them. That will help us, again, in contact tracing. We will be taking attendance, again, for contact tracing. We're going to require all staff and students to wear face covering, irrespective if we have few passengers or not. And we do understand that, and we will work with students who have documented medical need as why they cannot wear face covering. Each bus will carry, or each bus driver will have 10 additional face masks to use just in case a student attempts to board the bus without one. However, this courtesy will not be repeated daily for the same student. For sick students, if a school nurse identifies a student in school as being sick, we require parents to make arrangements to come and pick up their child. We need to be cognizant of the fact that transportation has older demographics among its ranks, and we don't want to expose our staff to a sick child. Parents without transportation means must make plans in case they need to rely on their neighbor or a family member to help them out. We highly, highly recommend parents not to allow a child who is sick to go to school. Please keep the child at home until their sickness has subsided. All the safety protocols we are putting in place will mean nothing if we allow sick students to board buses and or sit in classroom. The district has a process in place to notify parents if we learn of a COVID case with student or staff. Bus cleaning, we get a lot of questions about that. The district has expended a lot of money for electrostatic sanitizing machines, and what you see on this slide is our actual equipment that we have purchased, the Clorox 360 machine, the Petra backpack sprayer. We use the Ultra Q128 disinfectant in both machines. That disinfectant will kill viruses and germs between 2 to 5 minutes after you spray the interior. We are going to sanitize the buses twice per day, once after all the morning runs are done, and then again after the afternoon runs are all done. In between runs in the morning and afternoon, each bus driver will have a spray bottle with the same disinfectant, and they will wipe down those highly commonly touched areas by the students. We have been training our staff, believe it or not, during this shutdown. We have shared a lot of information via email. We have done Google Meets. We have done training videos that we've shared with them. That online training includes proper personal hygiene, social distancing, bus cleaning, and other transportation management issues related to operating in this COVID environment. Our training is continual. Our focus is to provide safe and efficient transportation. We want both our students and staff to be safe and healthy. For grades 7 through 12, the students will be split alphabetically. However, all students will be assigned to their neighborhood bus stops. These bus stops will not change irrespective of where they are relative to the student's home and their roll-in schedule, if you will. We can accommodate different bus stops for different students for different days. There's no way to manage that. And this concludes the transportation portion for this presentation.
So thank you very much, Mr. Karam. And again, we'll address the questions at the end. So at this point, I want to transition to Katie Headwell, who's our Director of Food Services, for Katie to talk about some of the more salient points related to food services. Katie?
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. So guidelines, just to tell everyone, we are still following our New York State Child Nutrition Standards like we always have. Breakfast and lunch will include all the components. It's going to be a grain, a meat alternate, fruit, vegetable, and milk, or milk substitute if needed. And then we're still in the process of developing a plan for access or delivery system to meals for virtual learners and hybrid learners. Some procedures that we are going to follow and have been following this whole time is our staff will wear masks and gloves at all times while preparing food and serving students. Prep areas will be sanitized after each task is completed constantly throughout the day, which is stuff that we follow anyway through the Department of Health. Serving areas and designated pickup areas will be cleaned and sanitized as much as possible during the lunch period and again in between each lunch period. Students will give cashiers or the servers their names. No pin pads will be used, so there is no excess touching. And disposable one-time use products will be used in everything and then discarded. For example, utensils, to-go containers, and any of the bags that the meals come in. So payment, we're really encouraging everyone to use our PayPam's online payment system. You can see the website there at paypams.com. You just have to register and everything goes through there. Checks and cash can be used at the point of purchase. However, change will not be returned to the student. The remainder will be entered into their account for future use. And obviously this is also due to two things. One, the coin shortage, that we do not have a lot of change on hand. And two, cash can tend to be a little bit dirty. So instead of handling cash and food at the same time, we're just going to be handling the food. Prepayment of checks and cash can be sent to the food service department at the district office. And obviously the prices for this year for lunch are listed below. So school meals. So breakfast is going to be a grab and go option. It's going to be available for pickup as the students enter the building. It will probably be right at all of the, when the students get off of the buses, wherever they're entering the building, we're gonna have carts full of ready to go, grab and go meals. And then the students will take it to their classroom or designated area to consume. Lunch, the students will make their lunch choice before lunch. It's gonna depend on their grade level. Lunch will be 3 options as of right now, so it'll be a hot entree and 2 deli choices. Students will have meals delivered to the classroom, or they will pick up their meal in a designated area depending on what grade level they're in. And students will either eat in their classroom or designated areas that have been cleaned and sanitized. So obviously we take food allergies very seriously, and this is something that we have pre-COVID and during COVID, and we'll continue to take seriously. So milk alternatives are available for students if needed. Substitutions can be made by contacting the cook manager at your child's school. And the principal at each school is going to designate an area for students with food allergies to eat if they choose to. Students obviously will be reminded not to share food. And allergies obviously will be dealt with appropriately by the nurse, teacher, or monitor before or during the lunch period. And just some free and reduced information. Applications are available online. The website is there. It's available on our website under the Food Service Department web section. You can return the application to your child's school or food service office here at the district office. You can use one application for all the students in your household. You don't need to fill out one for each child. And applications are only good for 1 year and up to the first 30 operating days of the school year. So when in doubt, fill it out anyway. And certainly if you have any questions, if your child is already on the list, they can certainly email or call.
So thank you very much, Al and Katie. So at this point, we would actually like to go to the questions, and I'm going to look at my computer and see some of the questions that's been in the chat and refer to either Al and or Katie to address some of the questions that I may not address directly myself. So one of the questions quickly came in was, so if we're going to drive a student, but we can't commit for the entire year to keep them on the list, it's better for us to know who they are than not. Is that correct, Al?
Yes, sir, it is.
And so the answer to that question is yes. We'd rather know that. However, we also want to know parents who are committed to drive their kids, because that also speaks to our capacity on buses.
Yes, correct.
And so someone also asked is who should they contact, and what's the phone number for people who want to contact transportation? It's on the website. But is it a general?
518-881-0240.
So 0240. But again, all our information is on the website. People could always access that phone number as well. I'm just going to keep scrolling through some of the questions that someone asked about the distance on the buses. Again, the distance on the buses, one, all kids will be wearing masks. Siblings, if siblings can allow to sit together, and we'll try to create distances between kids on the buses.
Actually, one of the guidance that speaks to that says siblings must sit together on the bus. And we're going to attempt to social distance on the bus to the extent possible. We're looking at about 50% capacity. And that's how we have designed our routing scheme.
Correct. So if no traveling students on the bus, because people are asking things about things like the Quest program and things of that nature. And so at this point, those questions, that's a programmatic question that buildings will be attempting to keep kids within buildings, to avoid kids traveling between buildings. So the answer to that question is, at this point, we'll be minimizing if having any traveling between buildings as we move forward. Again, just quickly going through some of the questions. So someone asked about the food option. I think Katie addressed the food options in terms of the types of meals. And again, part of this is also because we want to try to have, as much as we can, meals that can be carried and packaged for carrying, correct?
Yeah, well, we're trying to package the meal as quickly as possible so that we can get the kids to where they need to be as quickly as possible. So.
And one of the questions that often comes up, Alan, one that we have to deal with on a situational basis, we do have some cases, because of legal custody situations, that kids are split between houses. The things that we're trying to avoid is one day here, one day there, one day there. And so we do recognize the legalities. And so it's not our responsibility, our role to try to impact the legalities of custody arrangements. And so when we have some of those unique custody arrangements, we will contact those parents to say, okay, here's the situation of your custody arrangement. Can we find some commonalities to try to avoid a child being on multiple buses? Is that a fair assessment, Al?
That's a fair assessment. We need to reduce the exposure of students to different cohorts on different buses and staff as well. So it'll be case by case, yes.
And so someone, I'm assuming, on food services, how do we know that students are given the correct name on accounts? And quite honestly, if our bottom line is we will never allow a child to go hungry on any given day anyway. So let's start at that point. And honestly, if there's a suspicion that a child gave a name that's not theirs, eventually it'll be found out and we'll address it accordingly. And that's not a situation where the child nor the parents want to be in that predicament. So it is an honor system. It's an honor system in safety. It's an honor system in food services. Katie, I don't know if you want to comment on that more.
Well, so what I'm hoping is that, so my staff will have a list of all the students' names, so when they come and they give their name.
You have the ID as well.
Yeah, so I said we'll be able to kind of match things if we can at that moment. And then what my staff will do is they will take the list and they'll go back to the cafeteria and bring everything in on the cash register where we have the pictures of the students. So if my staff goes to ring one in and said, you know what, that student doesn't look familiar, that wasn't the one that came, they'll probably just put a star next to it, contact me, and then we'll deal with it appropriately.
And related to food service, Katie, people want to know, can students bring their own lunch to school?
Yes, of course. Students can still bring their own lunch. We're just offering another viable solution if you don't pack your lunch for your students.
And related to that too, it's important for you to know that bring your lunch for you and not to share. It's important. That's an important part because we know that sometimes people want to do that. That's not the sharing piece of it. So make sure that we do those kind of things. And on the same note, related to the allergy side, we often know in advance, and if we don't, and if you as a parent think that your child has a food allergy that we are not aware of, I'm asking you, please inform the school principal, the school nurse, and even inform Katie as the director of food services, so we know that if a child has a particular allergy, that we can ensure the areas where that child is eating or potentially exposed to where someone else is eating, we try to address that in the most effective way as well. So we need your assistance with that for parents who knows that child has a particular allergy.
That actually also translates to transportation, and school nurses will let us know if it's, which children do have allergies, because we need to keep an eye on that as well.
So it's a transportation question, Al, but I'll address this. People want to know when kids get off the bus. The plan is right now, when students get off the bus, they're going directly to their first period class. There's no hanging in the hallways. There's no going to lockers. There's no hanging in the lobbies. They're getting off the bus. They're going directly to their first period class. Again, trying to avoid congregation of students in hallways and lobby areas. So that is the plan right now in terms of how we'll be. That's the reason why we're doing a staggered boarding too. So that first period class is to get kids into those respective smaller groups of 16 or 18, whatever the class size capacity might be.
And that's at all levels.
Just again, quickly going through, the bringing lunch came up several times. So with lunch age, make sure that students are washing hands before lunch. We know that at the elementary level, that's a common practice. And not only will we principals encouraging that, but we also have hand sanitizers readily available for that as well. And plus, we know that many parents will have their children bring in hand sanitizer, but hygiene is going to be something that's going to be super stressed, not only in the cafeteria, but all the time, asking kids to wash their hands. And a question about capacity in the lunchroom. I think, Katie, you addressed that we'll be looking to provide lunch in different venues, and all those venues that allow for appropriate social distancing. So for instance, the cafeteria, our cafeterias are large, but we won't have 200-300 kids in the cafeteria. It'll be appropriate social distancing, and kids will be transitioning at staggered time as well to minimize kids going in and out. There'll be an entry door and an exit door, so kids won't be crossing as they're coming even into cafeterias. Asking about food services balance, Katie, and PayPam, instead of mailing a check, can that money be transferred over from this year's balances?
Yes, that's fine. If you want to send in a check to cover the balances, and then at least we know that your child will have money in their account to start off the school year, that would be great.
And again, the question was asking kids who come on the early bus, they'll be going directly to their classrooms, and so they'll be engaged with their teachers and be at homework or what other assignments may be taking place in class. And this also applies, by the way, for parents dropping off students. They'll be going also directly to their classrooms. A specific question, Al, but I'm asking this because it's kind of an interesting one. How will busing work if I have one child in MOVE and in the MOVE 2 program, so the high school program, and then have two twins in first grade? So in those instances, it'd be separate buses,
Separate
correct?
busing, correct.
So again, there'll be separate buses because one of the uniqueness of the MOVE program, and then quite frankly, because they're two different levels and two different start times.
Correct.
Again, the alerting piece of it, we want to be as courteous as, so if someone who decided, I want to walk or drive my kid every day and something happens, we want to be alerted. Why do we want to be alerted?
So we need to know who's not going to be on the bus. Again, all this leads back to contact tracing. It would be extremely helpful for us to know who is not on the bus. And if you're not going to be taking the bus, if you're the only one at that bus stop, it's also helpful for us to know that your child is not going to be on the bus for an extended period of time. So we don't have to stop there every day and be a nuisance to traffic. And when you're ready to put the child back on the bus, just give us a jingle about 24 hours ahead of time, and it would not be a problem.
A sanitizing question, and I thought it was a great question, and the answer is probably not as logical. On the buses, the drivers will be wiping down not only seat backs, but the handles coming on when kids are coming on the bus itself.
That's correct. So every bus is going to have a spray bottle with the disinfectant spray in it that we talked about, the Q Ultra 128. We mix that 1 ounce of Q 128 with a gallon of water. It's very, very effective. And the drivers will be wiping down the handrails, the seat backs, especially the first up 2, 3 where kids typically put their hands on. And they'll give the rest of the seat backs a quick wipe down. They will not be doing the entire bus. That will be taken care of by the electrostatic sprayers at the end of the morning shift, and then again at the end of the afternoon shift.
And a related question about who's wiping down cafeteria tables and things like that in the cafeteria.
Yeah, my staff will probably be cleaning the kitchen areas, and then we'll probably work with the monitors and some other people in the kitchen if the students are eating in the cafeteria. The big bus capacity is typically 6 to 6 kids.
It depends on what we have. A 72 passenger for elementary.
So we talk about 50% capacity. We're talking about maybe 30 kids, and that's also taking consideration ridership percentage, and so that will be that'll vary between that number. So again, it's important because so we're not talking about having 6 to 6 or 50 kids on a bus. That's why the 50% capacity. We don't want people to confuse 50% with 50.
Correct.
Because that's not the case,
Correct.
And the bus sizes vary as well.
The bus sizes vary, yes.
So someone asked, and so the answer to this one is no. Can we bring our kids home for lunch and then return? No, we won't have an open campus. That's what's typically referred to as an open campus, where people go on and off campus. And obviously see how that becomes problematic when we have people going on and off during the course of the school day. So we won't have that as well. And if you want your child to bring lunch, please make sure to have it in the morning, because we're also going to try to discourage parents showing up with lunch in the middle of the day for my child. We do recognize the exceptional case, and it has happened to every parent. Your kid gets on the bus, you leave to go to work, your child is calling you, say, I left my lunch bag right on the front porch when I was waiting. And so we do know those exceptions happen, and we'll deal with those exceptions as exceptions. So someone asked about who's monitoring kids while they're eating. All spaces where kids will be monitored by an adult. It could be a teacher, it could be a teacher aide, it could be, we have all times kids will be monitored to ensure that we're adhering to social distancing. That again, social distancing become important because kids will take their mask off to eat. So it's important that we adhere to the social distancing, particularly when students are eating. A question, and again, when kids get off the bus, not necessarily it's a transportation one, but not a transportation responsibility. Kids get off the bus, we will be having monitors and aides at the bus port to make sure that kids know where they're going, so they understand the routines. After a couple of days, kids understand the routine. So we certainly want to, the orientation process of kids is something that the building principals have been very good at, and teachers are very good at making sure, especially some of our younger kids, making sure that they understand the routines as they move forward. Just they're talking about sanitizing is a point that kept coming over. Um, Hours for the high school and the middle school hours, as Mr. Karen pointed out, the high school and middle school actually today, I was just on a call, ironically, they're hammering out all those things, particularly trying to make sure that the sequencing of parents drop off actually works. And so that's the piece, because we have student drivers at the high school as well. So there's a little bit more coordination that goes with the high school than with the elementary school. So all that information will be forthcoming in the coming weeks or so by the respective building principals. So again, we just wanted to highlight here. I think Mr. Karen wanted to highlight that parent drop-off is expected to be before bus drop-off.
That's correct.
So someone asked, and it may be a good suggestion, can we create a video to talk about drop-off procedures and things of that nature? Again, we'll see, because we're creating a lot of videos about a lot of things. The point is, we want to make sure that the expectations that we have and the procedures that we have, that they're made very clear to everyone, be it students, parents, or otherwise. And related to that, yes, once we'll start, and parents will start receiving information, I'll say probably towards the middle of next week, and some of that will be coming via email. But in a typical way, we also push a lot of information out via the portal, via the SIS system. So that information will start forthcoming. And the thing that we don't want to do is give you information today that's tentative, that change otherwise, and you make plans based on those things. So we want to make sure that we have solid information. So yes, that information will start forthcoming in a couple weeks as well. We don't have a lot of time between now and when we expect students to be completely on site on the 14th, recognizing the first 4 days after Labor Day will be a combination of some orientation, a lot of professional development training for teachers, as well as some distribution of materials, some different things that we have to do. And that first week of school, particularly for some of our younger students, will still be very much a transitional period in the same way that happens every year, where teachers take the time to make sure the students understand all the routines that parents are communicated with. So those things will happen. And I would say those things probably going to happen even more cautiously, or more measured is probably the right word, than they have in the past, because we want to make sure that people understand the new routines and new expectations. So Katie, so a question, normally we would go into the cafeteria to pick up our kids. And so at this point, I'm not sure if it's a pickup after school.
I think it's pick up after school. Because out the elementary school, the parents go in there to wait for their kids when they get picked up.
So if this question was related to pick up after school, I answer this way because the elementary principals will be putting out protocol. One of our major objective is to avoid people coming into buildings that we don't know who they are or their situations, because we want to try to have buildings as sanitized, as clean as possible. And so yes, we would try to minimize those type things. And so those procedures will be hammered out and articulated by the respective building principals again, as a part of the rollout communication process that will be happening in the coming weeks. And but the rule of thumb, though, is try to minimize visitors into the school building, because anyone who goes into the school building, we're asking them to go through a self-screening process. Al, a couple years ago, we were talking about a bus app, trying to see where the bus was coming. And I think there were some technical glitches with that didn't occur. Can you just articulate that a little bit?
Yeah, so we tested a Where's My Bus app from Untitled Technologies, and unfortunately, what we experienced in different parts of the district is there was too much signal latency. What that means is, by the time a parent got the signal, the bus has come and gone, and we were experiencing that phenomena on a level of anywhere between 2 minutes to 9 minutes. And obviously that would create more headaches and more frustration and more phone calls than it would have solved. So we turned that project off for the time being.
Ironically, with the COVID-19 era, there's a lot of new apps coming on the market every day. So I say that, who knows what will be the newest app that will help transportation, food services, because we're constantly looking at different applications to ensure safety procedures can be rendered in an effective way. So related to that, there was a question that just came up about related to buses, Al, and I think the answer would be yes, but I want to confirm with you that we'll have bus windows open, about not in the middle of the winter, of course, but certainly to create a fresh air path. Yes?
Actually, that is one of the protocols we're instituting, that we want windows cracked open, we want fans on. If a bus is equipped with escape hatch in the roof, we want those cracked open as well, because we want positive ventilation constantly up until the temperature drops below 45 degrees. Then we will have to close that and measure, how many windows we want open or not. Certainly, when it gets cold, we'll have heaters on and the interior blowers on as well.
And again, I think there's a couple parents, and we certainly understand it, particularly parents who are sending their kids to school for the first time. There's a lot of anxiety with that. I mean, trust me, I've lived it with 3 kids, so I know what you're feeling as a parent. And we are very, very cognizant of that, particularly with our K1, 2 even kids, to make sure that people are there to walk them through these processes. I know school buildings, for instance, kindergarten orientation, they're in the process of putting some of those things together so kids are oriented to the school before start of school. And even once school starts, still, again, doing those very nurturing type things, particularly for some of our younger students. And so the same way we have done those things in the past, we will continue to do it. And I would say, quite frankly, we're probably going to be even more sensitive to the fact that kids may have some anxiety of seeing things for the first time. And as a result, we're asking parents to right now make it the norm. We need to normalize wearing a mask. We need to normalize washing our hands multiple times during the course of the day. We need to normalize social distancing relationships. And so the more those things are normalized in our normal lively routines, when kids return to school, it is the norm, and that's the expectation. And so certainly, I know a lot of parents are doing it, because I've spoken to many parents, particular parents of younger kids, are having their kids practice masks, and some of the masks are supposed to be kid size, but they're not necessarily built for little kids. And so parents are looking at some of those, make sure they have the right appropriate size mask for their kids. And so those are the type things that right now we're asking parents to be partners in this equation in terms of safety provisions, because we will be requiring kids to have masks on the buses. And other than when they're eating in the cafeteria where there's social distancing, when they're transitioning to the cafeteria, they have a mask on. If they're not eating, we expect them to have the mask on. So again, we want to make sure that we're trying to be as safe as we possibly can. So I'm just going to squeeze through to see, are you expecting buses? So people talking about the length of bus rides. Will those things change as a result of this?
Well, we have not experienced road rolling out students out of the school in small groups. So I'm thinking not necessarily the bus ride is going to be longer, but the length of time it's going to take to get the children out of school in the afternoon, load them, depart the campus, then get them to their bus stop. So the bus routes themselves, I think the average ride will remain the same, around 45, 50 minutes. Depends where you live in the district. Some are definitely much closer. But the offloading in the morning and loading in the afternoon, that's the new dynamic that we have not experienced yet.
And just a suggestion, a decent suggestion that before kids get on buses or otherwise, can we have hand sanitizer available for kids before they get on the buses? And something we'll think through because we want to make sure we can consistently do it. Just again, I'm sharing it with you as a suggestion for you to take back to your staff. It's something that kids are boarding the buses, so it's just a thought of one of those things to do to make sure that kids have clean hands as they're touching things on the buses. Again, I'm just scanning through. I think we addressed quite a bit, if not all the questions that I see here on the chat. So I'm just going to refer to Mr. DeFiani. You said another question came that I didn't see?
I guess people are able to see bus routes on Infinite Campus.
Okay, so any information that's on Infinite Campus now is old, and thank you very much for letting us know that. So we will right away. In fact, I have a colleague that's sending an email right now to let people know that we're confusing the public by having old information available. So we'll go and clean up that old information so people won't have mixed messages about what's what. So thank you very much for bringing that to our attention. So again, I'm looking at staff here who's looking at the chat questions, and I'm also looking at chat questions. I think we addressed all the questions that's there that people have asked as well.
There's just one about money and accounts. Can I just address that one?
Sure.
Somebody asked a question about current money that's either in their child's account. All of that money will be transferred over automatically to the next school year, so their accounts stay the same. Their PIN numbers all stay the same, but if you have any questions about what their PIN numbers are, you can certainly email or call. We can give that information to you. And if you do have a senior who has graduated, you're more than welcome to email me, and we can issue a refund or transfer it to another sibling.
Katie, one of the questions, the allergy question, the food allergy question on desk as a concern when we're serving food. Can you comment on that further? So if we're serving food in the classroom, okay, and the students eat in the designated area, how do we ensure that area is clean so a kid who may have a food allergy is not exposed to that based upon on the desk?
Well, if it's in the classroom, which I think most elementary school children will be eating in their classrooms, that is going to be up to the principal to decide who is going to be cleaning that room and making sure that it's sanitized for those students. If it's a cafeteria where the kids are eating and there's a small percentage of kids in the cafeteria and they're socially distancing, that's something that my staff will help take care of along with monitors and anyone else that's in the building, that we will make sure that those tables are cleaned in between each lunch period.
Thank you, Katie. So someone asked about if kids having issues wearing masks. Absolutely, we will be working with students. We recognize that some students, particularly some younger students, and that's why we're encouraging even now for parents to start having those experiences, those conversations with students as we move forward. A question that was related to you, Al. Actually, it's not necessarily. It's about a question related to student drivers. At the high school level, will student drivers have designated arrival time? Yes, so that's what the high school is actually working on now. recognizing that we probably have more student drivers than in total, but recognize that the high school is going to be half the population on 2 days, half the population on another 2 days. So they're in the process now of working on those things, and those student drivers will be informed of the expected window that they should be coming into school.
There's a question here from a mom. It says, my third grader wants me to ask if ice cream will be available during lunch. I am very sorry to say that no a la carte items will be offered just for the beginning. We are going to try and prepackage all the meals so that we can get kids in and out as quickly as possible, because that is the time where they enjoy eating lunch and have time to relax. So as of right now, no, ice cream will not be available, but I promise it will be back at some point.
And related to that, Katie, someone asked, will you have your famous peanut butter and jelly sandwiches available as well?
No, as of right now, I know I feel like the bearer of bad news. As of right now, we're going to have one hot choice, which will either be, we will post the menus online. I did see that question in there. So we will still post the menus online. I will be posting the September menus probably sometime next week. We're going to stick with a lot of the popular items, obviously. But we are going to be offering one hot entree and then 2 deli choices. And the deli choices will probably either be like a turkey sandwich, a cheese sandwich, or a tuna sandwich as of right now. We are not a peanut-free district altogether, so we will, but we understand that kids are eating in their classrooms, so we won't be offering peanut butter and jelly at this time, but we'll change our options in the future as the time goes on.
So related to the allergy piece, again, kids will be eating, if they're eating in the classrooms, they're eating in the classrooms that they're in, and at the desk that they're sitting at. And so that one minimize the allergy exposure. And again, for students who we know that have certain allergies, we'll be making sure we take the precautions to, at one, identify who the students are, and two, to make sure that exposure to that particular allergy doesn't occur, not only from what we're serving as here, but in general. So the allergy question is a situational one, and it's a serious one. And so those things will be handled based upon those expected protocols. And that's the same way at the elementary, middle, or the high school level as well.
About the pin pad one. Did you see that about?
So the question asked about if the food service, so explain this one more time, Katie. So kids who are eating in their classrooms and meals are being delivered, you will be able to know who the kids are by looking at their attendance roster for that day. And since meals will be in advance of their lunch, we'll know exactly what kid got what meals based on their attendance. Is that correct?
Yeah. So what we're working with right now with all of the principals, I've had several meetings with elementary, middle school, and high school principals, is we're trying to set up some sort of Google form or Google sheet where the kids can pre-pick what they want before lunch. That information will get to my staff. We will pre-write everything on the to-go containers. Everything will be pre-labeled that the kids will be able to see that their name, and then everything will be separated. So we won't have to have PIN numbers. We won't be touching PIN pads. They really won't even see the cashiers at the elementary school level. It's just going to be a piece of paper that we're going to check mark. And then at the middle school and high school, depending on where they're going to be eating, then we will be using the cash registers, but the students will just give their names, and my staff will be entering everything in. So there's no contact.
And lunch times are typically the same period of time that they've had for lunch in the past.
Yes, it might just be a little bit different. That's what the elementary school principals, middle school and high school are working on as we speak.
But it's generally the same block.
But generally the same block of time. Yep.
So the question about transporting for Quest. Quest programs that typically had kids transitioning from one building to another will be contained in a building and delivered accordingly. So that's a question that will be addressed tomorrow at the program level. That we're doing that to try to avoid transporting kids between buildings and even during the daytime between buildings. So Quest and some of these other programs that, because of smaller groups of kids, we bring them together in one building, those things will be done differently. Some will be virtually. But again, that's a question that will be addressed tomorrow with the elementary principals when they're here as a part of our program level conversation. And someone asked about so cleaning between it's a question about allergy, but it's actually not a question about allergy. It's a question about cleaning between blocks at the high school. Yes, desk will be wiped down between blocks at the high school. So it's not necessarily a food service piece. It's just a cleaning period between blocks at the high school. And if a child has a particular allergy, I would venture that now that child is also taking extra precautions. But we do recognize the need just to sanitize period between blocks at the high school, particularly frequently touched areas. Lunch accounts, when students give you their name, can a picture pop up on the lunch account, or will you go through those steps to have that precaution in place?
Yes, at the high school level, if they're coming through our cafeteria lines, which we will have both of those lines open, we will also have the satellite cafeteria open. We're going to have many points in the high school level at this moment. But yes, their pictures do come up, and once their new pictures get taken, I work with our data management person, and we upload their pictures immediately. So.
And by the way, we're not expecting kids to clean desks. That's a responsibility that we'll be taking on as a school district. Anything a kid does beyond that is, quite frankly, with you, additional. But that's our responsibility. We're not, because we can't. Department of Health, we can't say to kids, "Hey, you have to clean your own desk." That's not an allowance, but we know that because personally myself, because of habits, I wipe down most things when I sit down, regardless if it was clean before. But that's a personal preference. But it's not expectation that kids are going to be clean off the desk for the next set of kids to come in after lunch. And someone asked about lunch at the high school, be similar time and sequence as well, with some staggering of the blocks to make sure that there's enough time to transition, be it out of lunch or into the periods. So we're talking about disposal of things, garbage out of classrooms. What's the process for that?
So at the elementary school level, I've spoken with a few principals, and we've actually included our custodial staff in those conversations also about what's the best way, because obviously if students are eating in the classrooms, there is going to be more garbage. And that's the process that I know that they're working on right now to figure out how they can get the garbage out of the classrooms as soon as the lunch period is over so that it's not sitting there. So.
And at the high school, how many lunch periods are we planning now? 4? Well, it's a 50% population, so it's a different configuration.
I think so. It might be 3 at the moment, depending on the block schedule. So.
Yeah. And a question not related to trans or food service. Yes, tomorrow when we do the program level, we will have some updated numbers on those parents who opt into the completely virtual option, learning option. So yes, that number will be updated tomorrow because we need it also part of our planning sequence. So that will be a part of the conversation tomorrow with the elementary, middle, and high school principals. Lunch options. I think you addressed lunch options and menu available online. What menu available online this year?
Yes, yeah, we have our menus almost completed, and they'll probably be posted sometime next week in the same spot they always have been.
Choices of sides and entrees, just the entrees, correct?
Basically just the entrees right now, because we want to try and get the students in and out as quickly as possible. We're going to limit the choices of the sides right now, but each meal will include an entree, a fruit and a vegetable, and probably a choice of milk.
So if you plan to drive your student to and from school, but do not opt out, do you have to notice transportation? if you plan to drive your student and you didn't opt out. So in other words, transit expecting to pick your child up, but so let me put it this way. We don't expect a parent to call us every morning and say, hey, I'm driving my kid to school.
No.
It's the opposite. If you had opt out and you need transportation, if you could call and say, hey, circumstances change, can you make sure my child get picked up? That's more of your concern.
That's correct. And if they're going to be driving every day, but they have not opted out of transportation, just shoot us an email and say, till further notice, I will be driving my child. It would be helpful for our planning purposes. And when you stop driving, just call us 24 hours ahead of time. We'll pick up your child.
And it goes to this a follow-up question that someone had, that if you are in fact planning to opt your kid out, we would like to know.
That's
so,
correct.
So please contact transportation and let them know that you're planning to do so.
That's correct.
And someone asked about tomorrow. So tomorrow is the same time, same YouTube channel, no pun intended. We'll be here at 5. Tomorrow, in tomorrow's program, we'll focus on instructional program rollout. We'll have 2 principals from the elementary level that talking about a lot of the I'm going to call the steady and big picture pieces, the main questions that people want to know. We'll have 2 principals from the middle school level to address middle school questions, and we'll have the high school principal here to address high school principal. And Dr. Wood, who's our deputy superintendent for curriculum instruction, she'll be facilitating a lot of that conversation to make sure that we really do get to those key questions that, again, that we know that people are asking, recognizing that this time of the year, there are many things people would have already known in a quote-unquote normal year, but this isn't. And so subsequently, a lot of information still to come in a very compressed time frame. It's compressed for you, and it's even more compressed for us as you think about it, especially things like provision of transportation and routing and making sure that we know whose kids are going on what bus and those kind of things. And that's why the more information we have, the better the decision we can make, not only for Katie, because Katie's ordering food. And so she needs to know what kids are coming, where kids are going to be, and having our staff ready to distribute food in classrooms or whatever those designated spaces are. So in fact, this week we'll be working on those designated spaces to make sure that we understand it, so we have quite frankly, a very seamless operation come September. So Al, somebody said, if I'm planning to drop off in the morning, but ride in the afternoon, do they need to notify you?
No, not necessarily. But again, if you're going to be doing it every morning, it would be nice if we get an email from you or a phone call saying that that's what you're going to be doing, so that driver is not looking for your child every morning because they're not going to be there.
So it's same questions. It was related to one. Some was elementary, some was high school, and information. People asking email addresses. All those things again are easily found on the district website, and quite frank with you, if you call the 518-881-0600 number, which is our switchboard number, anyone could give you that information. Only reason why I say that, because if I repeat it verbally, you may forget about it. But please, the website is your source document for transportation, is your source document for food services. A lot of information that we have here, not only is it a part of our reopening plan and of our F&Q, but once transportation start putting out certain information, they'll be reinforcing information on their websites as well, so people have multiple places to find information. And again, the email, what's a typical email address somebody from Trans wants to send an email?
There's one right on the website. It's
Like on the trans website.
Yeah. So their website is posted.
transportation@shanschools.org.
And if people are in the chat right now, we just had a staff member post that right into the chat. You can always click on that right now and save that to your browser. But again, that information is available for you. So if you're in CVL and you switch back to in-person, yes, at that point, we would then have to know, is transportation expected? And so that will be a part of the re-entry, if you will, to make sure transportation is available and aligned accordingly. So I see a lot of people saying thank you, and thank you all very much for being here with us. Our goal, and that's the reason why, as superintendent, personally, I have answers to many of the questions that you have because it's part of my responsibility. But however, we need the people who are doing it every day to be here to address your questions, but also to hear the type of questions that you're asking so that we are ensuring that our processes are addressing those things. So your questions is informative to us to inform our decisions, and hopefully the information we're providing is informative to you to give you a high degree of confidence that as a school system that we're doing all we can to open in a safe manner, in a manner that's going to be effective for students from a learning perspective and effective for the student from a standpoint of personnel being ready to act in the best interest of your students. And senior passing parking passes, that information will be forthcoming from the high school. And I know that we expect that we may have more students than normal. So the high school administration will be handling that. I don't have a date right now at this moment, but I know that's something that they're working on the logistics of. Um, Interesting one, Al. So do kids get to choose their seat, or will they be assigned a seat?
All right, so in order for us to start off with the social distance and the seat assignment and all that, we are actually going to have our drivers make the seat assignment before school starts. So they will have it ready for day one. Typically, they don't have it ready for several days after school start. And then, from there, we can rearrange seating. Again, where we can, it's not going to be carte blanche. We have to be mindful again of our task if we have to do contact tracing. But the drivers will work with the students. We'll work with school principals. I know some dynamics sometimes don't work, and we can do that. We just don't want to constantly do that because it becomes a task that becomes unmanageable, especially, and I'm going to keep going back to that contact tracing. It becomes very, very difficult when we're constantly changing our seat assignments.
And a question was, again, one of the earliest slides, the secondary drop off and dismissal. One of the slides on the presentation had that information on there. And again, we could reiterate that the one slide, Mr. Karam, the high school. Can you just articulate those middle school, high school drop off and pickups?
So the middle school bus arrival is at 9:30, and the bus dismissal is at 3:15. That's for all grades at the middle school. And high school is 7:40 at High School West and 7:40 at High School East. For the dismissal, it's 2:10 at High School West and 2:18 at High School East.
This presentation will be posted on the website tomorrow too.
And again, it was just noted to me by that this presentation and this video will be on the website. So that information that Mr. Karam just mentioned is on the website. And also, probably even by the end of the week, we'll be collapsing a lot of this more salient information in a communication that will be going out to parents again. Because we really, really want to make sure there are multiple ways that people are getting information. So not only from this presentation, but you'll be seeing this information again from the district communications, as well as you'll start seeing some of this information come from transportation, and you'll start seeing this information coming from the building as well. So someone's saying with those arrivals time, what time can they expect bus pickup at their houses? I guess that varies on where you live, on your routes, correct?
Exactly, it's going to vary.
But that information parents will also get from transportation.
That's correct. So we are planning on actually tomorrow to send the parent mailers to the printer to have them printed. sorted and mailed out. Hopefully, they'll be in the mail by either Friday or Saturday. Maybe, hopefully, you get them by Monday or Tuesday at the latest. That's our target date for right now. And we are working with the district office to get the updated routing information available to you through Infinite Campus as soon as we can.
And bus stops will probably be similar to last year's.
They should be similar. There's changes, but they should be similar.
Yeah. So I think the question was like, if their house is on the main road, will they still stop at the house versus having the kids stand on the main road type thing? We'll deal with main roads the same way you deal with main roads now.
That's correct.
And again, I see. I think we effectively addressed the questions, but certainly we'll give a few more minutes, recognizing that we had the time allotted to be here. Someone asked, "Will the bus stop at my house?" Well, it all depends if your house was a bus stop or not, and is a fair assessment. We're not planning to do door-to-door pickups.
We're not doing door-to-door. The stops will be the stops, and they do change from year to year based on students aging out, graduating, fifth going to sixth, eighth going to ninth. Those things do create changes. New parents and their children moving into the district, they have an effect on bus stops. So there'll be some changes, but overall, the bus stops will remain the same.
So again, I'm just going to pause briefly here to make sure I don't miss any last-minute questions that came in, because we thank you very much, Mr. Karam and Katie. You guys were very efficient in addressing the questions, not only in your presentation, but also since you've been here as well. So again, email addresses on the website, and it's just an easier thing to do. And one of the things that we'll do, since people have been asking about contact information, we'll reinforce it. We'll modify this presentation here and actually put the transportation contact information right in this presentation so people know. And similar, we'll put the food service contact information right in this presentation so people could always refer back to this as well as the website. And yes, we're taking all the extra steps because it's important that people have the information or have access to the information that they need when they need it. And so we want to make sure we're trying to be as accommodating, as reasonable, to ensure you as a parent have a high degree of confidence that we're trying to do all we can in the best interest of your children. And it's not rhetoric. It's what we do. It's what we commit ourselves to do. And that's why we have these folks here at now 6:10 or 6:07 to make sure that we're being informative to our parents and to our students. So I want to say thank you again, Mr. Karam, Katie. Thank you very much, and to our parents who took the time to listen to us today. Thank you very much. Gratefully appreciate it. Our next session will be tomorrow here at 5, and that's when we're going to talk about some instructional program logistics. And again, the intent is not to go through every detail, because if we go through every detail, we'll be here for hours. And however, we want to go through some salient details or some salient facts or some salient practices so that you as a parent have a not only a big picture perspective, but also understand some of the nuances as you look to prepare your child for return to school here at Shen. A lot of folks are putting a lot of work, and we want this to be right. And your feedback, your input, as I said before, several questions you asked today that I know that Mr. Karam's head is spinning. Good idea. Katie has a few. Oh, that's a good idea. We should go back and look at those kind of things. The pin pad question. Let's look at that. Can we have students, when they say their name, pop up to make sure that it's the right student? All those things are great informative things. What I call those nuances of the lived experience. So again, thank you very much for taking the time to join us. And please stay tuned. Go to the website for information. We have the same commitment. Our mantra, Shen is in. We're in, and we're in this all together. So thank you very much.